Hello everyone and welcome to Chapter 7 this week over individual and group decision making. Quick overview of the chapters. We will begin by distinguishing between rational and non-rational decision making, and we describe the three non-rational models. We will then consider the evidence-based decision making and the use of analytics. Then we will describe general decision making styles, followed by a discussion over ethical decision making. Next in the chapter, we follow by considering how individuals respond to decisions, situations, and four common decision-making biases. The chapter will conclude with a discussion of group decision-making, including participative management and group problem-solving techniques. Now, the chapter this week is broken up into 6 different sections. The first section will be over two kinds of decision-making, rational and non-rational. After reading this, you should be able to answer the question, how do people know when they're being logical or illogical? The next part is 7.2, which is over evidence-based decision-making and analytics. After reading this, you should be able to answer the major question posed as, how can I improve my decision-making using evidence-based management and business analytics? The third part of the chapter is over the 4 general decision-making styles. After this, you should be able to answer, how do I decide to decide? The fourth part of the chapter is over making ethical decisions. I know we introduced this a couple chapters ago, but we'll be going a little bit more in depth in it now. And after reading this section, you should be able to answer the question as to what guidelines can I follow to be sure that decisions I make are not just lawful, but also ethical. The fifth part of the chapter is how to overcome barriers to decision making. You should be able to answer the question after reading all the material. Trying to be rational isn't always easy. What are the barriers? And the chapter will conclude with the 6th part of Chapter 7, which is over group decision making, how to work with others. After this, you should be able to answer the last question is, how do I work with others to make things happen? As you enter into the chapter this week, put yourself in the place of a manager if you're not already a manager, or if you have been a manager in the past in any type of role. Try to think of how you make decisions. Because the biggest part of a manager's job is that, in fact, making decisions. Unfortunately, oftentimes those refer to the wrong decision. So try and ensure that your decision is not biased, but that you ask yourself some questions before making that decision. Think of these questions such as, am I being too overconfident? Am I considering the actual evidence, or am I possibly wedded to my prior beliefs? Are events really connected, or are they just happening by chance? Is there enough data on which to make a good decision here? Looking back, did I, or possibly others, really know enough to have made a better decision than what we made? Just some quick questions for you to think about as you were facing the information in this chapter. Throw the term around a few times, and I'll just go ahead and define it, and that's decision. A decision is a choice made from among available alternatives. A choice made from available alternatives. And decision making is that process by which we are identifying and choosing alternative courses of action. And we have two systems. One that is rational, analytical, and slow to act, and the other that is emotional impulsive when we go to make general purpose decision making. And as managers, there are 2 models we have to follow in making decisions, rational and non-rational. Now, the rational model of decision making is also called the classical model, which explains how managers should make decisions. It assumes that managers will make logical decisions that will be the optimum in furthering the organization's best interests as we try to reach those organizational goals. Using this figure here, we will go over those 4 stages here in our rational decision making model. Stage 1 is identifying the problem or opportunity. Problems are difficulties that inhibit the achievement of our goals. Opportunities here are situations that present possibilities for exceeding existing goals. How to change conditions from the present to the desirable is a matter of diagnosis, or analyzing the underlying causes. And we move to stage 2, that's think up alternative solutions, both the obvious and the creative. After you have identified the problem or opportunity and diagnosed its causes, you need to come up with some alternative solutions. Stage 3 is evaluate alternatives and select a solution, and base these on ethics, feasibility, and effectiveness. Ask yourself, is it ethical? If it isn't ethical, you shouldn't give it a second look. Is it feasible? A proposed solution may not be feasible for a variety of reasons. Is it ultimately effective? Short-term, kind of good enough solutions may not be the best in the long term. And I know we have a rash of factors that fall into there to help in deciding if it's effective or not. And do we need to make a short-term solution? And is it okay, or do we need to really look at our long-term solution? And lastly, stage 4, implement and evaluate the solution chosen. With some decisions, implementation is usually pretty much straightforward. With other decisions, the implementation can be quite difficult. Obviously, for implementation to be successful, you need to plan carefully and be sensitive to those affected. You also need to follow up and evaluate the results of the decision and to take action. If it's not working, some possibilities might be give it more time. Maybe you need to change it slightly. Maybe there's another alternative you should try, or possibly just start all over. Now we know nothing is perfect. So what's wrong with the rational model? The rational model is prescriptive. It's describing how managers ought to make decisions, not how managers actually have to make decisions. So the rational model makes 3 unrealistic assumptions. Complete information with no uncertainty. Managers should have complete, error-free information about all alternative courses of action and their consequences. Logical, emotional analysis. Managers should have no prejudices or emotional blind spots. And best decision for the organization. Managers should choose the alternative they believe will best fit the organization. Now let's take a look at the non-rational decision making. Non-rational models of decision making explain how managers do make decisions. They assume that decision making is nearly always uncertain and risky, making it difficult for managers to make those optimum decisions. The non-rational models are descriptive rather than prescriptive. They describe how managers actually make those decisions. We have 3 non-rational models, and those are satisficing, incremental, and intuition. We'll take a look at those now. Managers don't tend to make an exhaustive search for the best alternative. Instead, they follow the satisficing model. That is, managers seek alternatives until they find one that is satisfactory, not optimal. The incremental model, the least that will solve the problem. In the incremental model, managers take small, short-term steps to alleviate a problem rather than steps that will accomplish a long-term solution. Temporary steps may accomplish or impede a long-term solution. Now the intuition model, you kind of think of this as it just feels right. This is kind of like going with your gut or your intuition and making a choice without the use of conscious thought or logical interference. Sources of intuition can be such as things as expertise, a person's explicit or technical knowledge about a person's situation or decision opportunity. And another source of intuition could be feelings, the automatic underlying emotions that a person experiences about those same matters. Now, intuition has at least 2 benefits. One benefit is that it can speed up decision making when deadlines are tight, and obviously deadlines are always tight. And 2, using intuition can be helpful when resources are limited. And as a manager, a lot of times you'll find that your resources for making those decisions are definitely very limited. Unfortunately, a drawback of intuition is that others may not see your logic and therefore be hard to convince that that decision is the decision you should go with. Now let's take a look at evidence-based decision making. Evidence-based management means translating principles based on best evidence into your organizational practices. There are 7 implementation principles that help companies that are committed to doing what it takes to profit from evidence-based management, and they're here. First one is treat your organization as an unfinished prototype. Don't be concerned that your organization will be ruined by dangerous new ideas or that it is impossible to change because of employee or management resistance. The next one is follow the slogan, no brag, just facts. Many assertions are made with complete disregard for the facts, and they ignore them. See yourself and your organization as others do. Most managers have inflated views of their own talents and prospects for success. and this causes them to downplay risks and continue on the same path despite evidence that things are just not working. Next, evidence-based management is not just for senior executives. The best organizations out there are those in which everyone is guided by the responsibility to gather and act on quantitative and qualitative data. The next one is just like everything else, you still need to sell it. New and exciting ideas grab attention even when they are vastly inferior to those older ideas that have been established in your organization. You need to grab management's attention by using vivid stories to sell preferred practices based on solid, even if unexciting evidence. Now, if all else fails, slow the spread of bad practices. It may be necessary for you to practice so-called evidence-based misbehavior. And lastly, the best diagnostic question. What happens when people fail? When something goes wrong, you need to face the hard facts. You need to learn what happened and why. And you need to keep using those facts to make the system better. Alright, what makes it hard to be evidence-based? Here are some of those reasons to look at, because it is hard to bring the best evidence to bear on your decisions. Maybe there's too much evidence, or there's not enough good evidence. The evidence doesn't quite apply here. People have their own agendas and they're trying to mislead you. Maybe you do and you are trying to mislead yourself. The side effects outweigh the cure. Or stories are more persuasive anyway. So those are 7 reasons why applying the best evidence to your decisions can be difficult. The purest application of evidence-based management is the use of analytics. Analytics, or also called business analytics, is the term used for sophisticated forms of business data analysis. Now, examples of this would be like a portfolio analysis in which an investment advisor evaluates the risk of various stocks for a potential client. Another one would be a time series forecast, which predicts future data based on patterns of that historical data. And there's some research that finds that there are 3 key attributes among analytics competitors. The use of modeling, going beyond simple descriptive statistics and using data mining and predictive modeling. Now, predictive modeling is data mining technique that is used to predict future behavior and anticipate the consequence of change. Another one is having multiple applications for the data instead of just one. And lastly, support from the top. The use of analytics requires leadership from top executives. So company-wide embrace of analytics impels changes in culture, in the business's processes, the organization's behaviors, as well as skills for many employees. So by having your top executives buy into this, that is definitely key in using the analytics.